Thank you guys so much for being here today and welcome to our part-time officer question time. I'm Sasha, the current DDO, and I'll be chairing the Q&A today. Before we start, I'd like to say a huge thank you and congratulations to everyone that's running. This is such a big decision and this election cycle wouldn't happen without you guys. Today we'll hear from the candidates from the 7 PTO positions. So that's from widening participation, environment and ethics, women's officer, ethnic minorities officer, disabled students officer, LGBTQUA officer, and trans student officer. Sadly, there aren't any candidates for the international officer, EU or non-EU, so we won't be hearing from them. Before we start, just a few housekeeping bits. Obviously, there's free pizza, help yourself to that. If you need the toilet, they're just down the corridor. And if the fire alarm goes off, please do proceed to evacuate the building through the main entrance, as there are no planned fire drills. Although we did have one earlier on today, so fingers crossed not for another one. And now we'll get started. So first up, if we could have our widening participation officer, Siham Hassan. So, should we take questions from the ball first?
So for working class students who may be less informed on competitive industries, the focus on careers at Warwick can be particularly daunting. What would you do to support students entering this environment?
I think coming to this environment as a widening participation student can be quite hard. I think having workshops that cater to people's particular niches and the careers that they want to go into would be really important. And at these workshops, having alumni and widening participation students who were at work before but have figured out a way to break into those niches would be important. Also having mentorship schemes so that people can feel comforted and supported and have people who understand their struggles going into certain industries.
For many students, finding employment whilst at university is a matter of necessity. So how do you support these students in finding part-time employment and helping them to manage it alongside their degree?
I think part-time work is something that's necessary for many widening participation students, including myself. I think using things like uni temps or other part-time work experience, trying to find flexible work experience that can cater around people's studies would be very important. I think also some people can struggle with time management, so really helping people understand how they can balance that kind of work and balance being a student at the same time is also very important.
Okay, thank you. And then, sorry, I forgot to ask you to do your speech, so if you'd like to do that.
Oh, okay. Hello, my name is Siham Hassan and I'm applying to hopefully be your widening participation officer. I'm a first year biological sciences student here, and I'm a widening participation student myself, so I understand how important it is to feel supported, and I hopefully want to create that environment for future students and also some who currently go to this university who might be in this room now. My main focuses are on addressing unique personal challenges that people might have, whether those are financial, whether those are mental health issues, also focusing on career advancement, so people might come into this area or come into this institution and really not understand how they can break through into their careers. So hopefully trying to advance that through workshops, through bursaries, all those kinds of things, and also increase representation and hopefully have widening participation students in all aspects of this university's policy making. But yeah, I'm incredibly passionate about this, and yeah, feel free to ask any questions and email me. It should be on the Student Union website. Yeah.
Thank you, Suhan. And then any questions from Raw?
The Free Breakfast Club has been a great initiative from within the SU, but do you personally have any other ideas for events that could be run to support students with the cost of living pressures?
Cost of living is incredibly important. So I think things like having cheaper maybe study snacks or subsidized study snacks, especially for people who are in the library a lot and they need to feel themselves, and things can be quite expensive these days. So having free snacks for people to have, or cheaper things, also community meals maybe, so like kind of creating like an environment where widening participation students can come together and just support each other. Yeah, I feel like that's quite important.
The SU has run a Let's Talk About Classism campaign over recent years. How would you continue to raise awareness of and counter class-based discrimination within the SU?
I think just having widening participation students come together and just have open and free dialogue. Like everyone has their own kind of individual and unique experiences as a widening participation student. So hearing from all kinds of people and also having people understand maybe their kind of privileges coming into this university, and maybe having a little bit of empathy for other people would help advocate for that.
Thank you. And then if we have any questions from the floor. Okay, thank you so much, Sihan. Okay, so next up we're going to have candidates for our Environments and Ethics Officer position. Candidates for this role are Amir Amiri, Bahima Sachdev, Helena Ratcliffe, Namisha Sharma, Samara Araja Majorca. We have received apologies from Bhumika for this session, but we have a speech that she has sent in a speech. But if anyone else for that role would like to come to the front. Would you like to give your speech?
Yes. Hi, my name is Helena Ratcliffe and I'm running to be your SU Ethics and Environment Officer. Like many of you throughout my life, I've cared very deeply about the environment and climate change. And I think this is an issue that young people are often forced to deal with, or it's very stigmatized in the fact that we are expected to solve it as we will bear the consequences. However, despite this, I think it's my view that the university should do more to ensure that they hit their 2030 net zero target and claims to increase recycling by 65% by 2035. Instead of vague targets for the future, as EEO, I will campaign for action now rather than later. In terms of this recycling target, this means introducing food waste bins in all campus accommodation, more vape, gum and battery bins, and more dual general waste and recycling bins outside to ensure students have opportunities to recycle and revitalise Warwick's recycling system. As for energy efficiency to meet the 2030 net zero target, I will campaign for automatic lights in all campus accommodations to ensure that kitchen and bathroom lights turn off at night, and I will shorten these light timers so that they turn off faster with no movement, therefore saving energy. As well as this, I will work on the ethics side of the role to ensure that students are more involved in the vetting process for companies working with the university, and that they have accessible information about the environmental and ethical records of companies so that they are able to make guided decisions about their future career paths and internship opportunities. This will include increasing the accessibility of the BP archives.
Thank you. And then if we take questions from Raw first.
What are your thoughts on the SU's decision to not commit to all of its outlets being 100% plant-based by 2027?
Yeah, I quite strongly disagree with the decision, as it was passed by an all-student vote, and I think it's quite undemocratic to go against this majority from students kind of telling them. I think the SU and the university should continue to be student-led rather than pushing through policies that aren't supported by the student body. Also, I think it's really important for vegetarian and vegan students to be encouraged to live this lifestyle, live sustainable lifestyle, and have foods accessible to them on campus for them to buy. So, yeah.
As a follow-up question then, in what way would you like the Warwick SU outlets to become more sustainable?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot currently, I think maybe like 25% of food waste from these outlets is that's what they're aiming to recycle. I think, again, like food waste across campus, being like, you know, you can use it in compost or even to generate energy. I think that'd be a really important step. Also, I know a lot of them are on Too Good To Go, maybe getting like all university food outlets on that so that people can pick up and save food and prevent food waste as well. But yeah, just having like a greater variety of vegan and vegetarian options available, yeah.
Thank you. And then if we get questions from the board.
Warwick was recently awarded a 2-2 by People and Planet's University League, placing 82nd in the UK for sustainability. How will you hold the university accountable in meeting its sustainability commitments?
Yeah, I think, well, back to sustainable food again. I mean, that was their lowest scoring on the People and Planet record. Again, that's definitely an area I would focus on, doing what I've just previously mentioned. But yeah, I think it's really important to also set kind of smaller targets along the way to meet that 2030 deadline, rather than just stating that and saying it's going to happen. We need more direct and likely things along the way to make sure the university stays on that target. Yeah.
What major steps can be taken to improve recycling and sustainability in waste disposal on campus for students?
Yeah, I think more recycling bins around uni. We have them inside most buildings, but I've noticed that outside a lot of the time there's just general waste, so it kind of encourages you to just throw things away in the general waste rather than actually thinking about recycling. What was the rest of the question? Could you repeat the question?
What major steps can be taken to improve recycling and sustainability in waste disposal on campus for students?
More just generally food waste, as I've said before, making sure it's reused and also just reducing it in general. Also educating students about what can be recycled and what can't be. Often I have flatmates and stuff like that who don't realise that an egg box, for example, or a milk carton can be recycled. So I think more training, especially as a fresher when you get to uni, you have to go through induction. I think it's important to have maybe greater sustainability education as well, so to make sure people do recycle.
Thank you. And then any questions from the floor? Raj?
In your position as environmental ethics officer, I think there's a lot of focus on environmental kind of processes and stuff like that. You mentioned in your speech about ethical investment and stuff like that, and made student awareness of that. What would you say to, how would you try and lobby the university, or what kind of things are you thinking of trying to push for the university to do to become more ethical and have their investments?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important that the university, that this process is student-led, and basically that they listen to student demands. So we've got a lot of different campaigns going on, Get Rolls-Royce off campus, BP off campus. I think with BP as well, I'd like to campaign to make it more accessible, the archives, because currently you have to go through BP and it's a very long process. And I think if it's on our campus, students should have access to it and have information about these companies that the university is supporting. So I think kind of more accessible information so that, again, people can make guided decisions about their potential career paths and internship opportunities. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, any more questions? Just checking. Okay, thank you so much.
I'm just going to read a speech out on behalf of Barimika Shandev. Hi, I'm Barimika and I'm running for the position of Environment and Ethics Officer. My main intention behind running for this post is to bring a change on campus as it's the need of the hour to focus on sustainability and an ethical future to improve the quality of life. I am very focused and determined and work hard to achieve my goals. I always welcome suggestions or ideas and I care about the environment, so always ready to answer any questions related to sustainability. My plan, as also stated in my manifesto, is to form an efficient lighting system which uses minimum energy consumption and promote use of environmentally friendly packaging materials which are biodegradable. I am for an ethical future, so would also encourage the university to invest in sustainable development projects and focus on CSR to ensure equality for all.
Thank you. Okay, we're now going to hear from candidates for Women's Officer. So candidates running for this position are Gauri Patel, Geneva Zen, Katie Todd, Khadija Malik, Navaya Sheth and Valiama Sabrina. Would you like to do your speech? Yes.
Hello, I'm Katie Todd. I'm running to be a women's officer. You might know me from around the Student Union before. I've been on SOCS Forum and Student Council this year. Also maybe from Warwick Plan, where I organised our drag race charity event. I'm also, as a queer woman on campus, I have first-hand experience of the importance of inclusion of all identities on campus, and that's why I decided to run for this position. Some of the things I want to do is to make Warwick a genuinely safer place, and ensuring this doesn't come at a cost for students, including like free drink covers in the Student Union bars and clubs. And also, I just want to amplify underrepresented voices on campus, like mine, and so that everyone feels safe to use their voice as loud and as strong as they want, and feels empowered to do this as they understand the system. I'd also like to actively encourage and foster a community and diversity on campus, and oppose all discrimination, including transphobia, racism. It's very we live in a difficult world at the moment, but I just want to protect Warwick campus from that and ensure that our communities remain safe. And that's what I want to do as your women's officer.
Thank you. And if we hear questions from the board first.
Many female students describe feeling unsafe on nights out on campus, as well as in Coventry and Leamington Spa. How could you improve education around consent and how to stay safe?
Yeah, so first of all, I don't think this education should target just women and just female communities around feeling safe. I think it should target everyone on campus, and it can benefit everyone on campus as well. We have programs like Ask Angela and things like that people are aware of, but I think more can always be done and should be done. I think reaching out to societies through connections I have like that, and spreading and signposting information and education to them, including like strong female role models on campus. I think their voices should be amplified as well. Things like active bystander, they could include more comprehensive information specifically about clubs off campus, and that can then be spread to societies, as that's compulsory for them. And I think this kind of training should be consistent throughout the year, just not when we get new execs in and during Freshers Week. The signposting should always be there, and there should always be options to refresh yourselves on that.
Do you believe the report and support system is fit for purpose in supporting victims of sexual violence on campus? And if not, how could it be improved?
Yeah, I mean, having a report and support system is a good thing, but I don't think you could say it has been completely successful on campus. I think if you spoke to a lot of women, they would say that they found it difficult to use that system, they don't feel comfortable with it, and it hasn't been quick enough in addressing their issues. I think there are a couple of things you could do. You could make the process more accessible and clearer. I mean, just before this, I looked through the report and support website online, and there's a lot of links to take you to support, but there's not a lot of information on what happens after that. I think making that clearer could be helpful. Also, just making sure women have options to talk to as many individuals as possible. Like, they might feel more comfortable talking to a fellow woman, or not feel comfortable talking to security, and that should be an option for them. And not being asked outdated questions about consent and what they were, if they were inciting anything against themselves. I just don't think that's a fair way to address them.
Thank you, and then if we hear from Raw next.
The Period Poverty campaign on campus has been spearheaded by successive women's officers. How would you enhance this campaign?
The Period Poverty campaign has been great. I mean, I've followed it whilst I've been here. I've used its services myself, and I would really want to continue to support it. I think to do that, I would market it again to more societies. I think a lot of societies do welfare stands, like I know Euphoria has a welfare stand. We could make sure that the period poverty resources are available to be put on them, so it's not just you don't have to go into the toilets necessarily or specific toilets around campus to get them. They should be available at events and on club nights, and also just marketing to encourage more student volunteers to get involved. It's a great campaign to get involved with, and I would personally market that, and I would like to see more marketing on the Student Union website and on their Instagram.
What do you think is the biggest concern facing female students on campus at this moment, and how would you look to address this?
Yeah, I mean, the main focus of my campaign is going to be that Warwick University should be a place where all women feel supported and safe. And this means stronger anti-spiking measures. I spoke about free drink covers. You know, I don't think safety should necessarily come at a cost to women or to societies. And I know at the moment, in order to fill the gaps left by the student union, societies are footing the bill for free drink covers, women are footing the bill to keep themselves safe, and that shouldn't happen on campus. And also just a focus on like amplifying and empowering women's voices will also make campus a more supportive place for women, because, you know, when I came to campus, it was great. I did meet loads of female role models, but just amplifying those voices more would be a way to make campus a more supportive place. And also just, again, with the world as it is right now, just all forms of discrimination, I would personally be vocal against them and make people feel comfortable.
Thank you. We have just had another women's officer candidate walk in, so if you'd like to come to the front and give your speech, and then Raw and Bort, if you're okay to repeat your questions.
Hi everyone, my name is Valyamai. I'm a first year BSc Economics student, and I'm running to be a women's officer because I believe that everyone at Warwick deserves to be felt safe, empowered, and heard. As someone who has navigated male-dominated spaces, whether in economics, entrepreneurship, or leadership, I have first-hand experience with the challenges women face when trying to establish themselves and their voices heard. This has fueled my passion for initiatives that not only protect women, but also uplift and empower them in their academic, professional, and personal journeys. So how do we make Warwick a safer and more empowering place for women? Firstly, campus safety and security. Emergency phone booths near accommodations to provide instant assistance, especially late at nights, to ensure that students don't have to walk all the way to Senate House or Community Safety Hub at late night. And also ensure more pathway lighting, especially around these Carmen Cafe, Sherburne, and Lakeside, to make sure no woman feels unsafe walking home. A security checkpoint on the road that is connecting campus to the Tesco Road to prevent unauthorized entry and reduce instances of theft and harassment such as those that have happened in the past. The second would be women's safety and mobility. So I plan to introduce self-defense workshops at a much more subsidized rate every week for female staff and students to equip them with the skills needed in case any situation arises. And also collaborate with local transportation as much as the student union can to implement a women-only night bus service running from 1 a.m. to 4 a.m., especially during club nights such as Neon and SPAC, given that these are the nights where students usually travel off campus. The third would be professional and well-being initiatives. So conduct workshops that not only include technical workshops, but also soft skill workshops such as salary negotiations and leadership training workshops. I believe we deserve to be paid our worth and have the confidence to lead, especially in male-dominated fields. And lastly, continuing the student union's initiatives to reduce period poverty on campus, but also make sure that there are weekly refills of these sanitary products in all places across campus. I am committed to turning these ideas into real change, so if you believe in a safer, stronger, and more empowered work for women, vote for me as your women's officer, and I'll make sure your vote counts.
Thank you. So then, if we hear the questions from Bort again.
So many female students describe feeling unsafe on nights out on campus, as well as in Coventry and Leamington Spa. How would you improve education around consent and how to stay safe?
All right, thank you for your question. So I'd firstly advocate for mandatory consent workshops, especially during the Freshers Week. This would involve interactive discussions, real-life scenarios, and clear guidance on boundaries, and also how to seek support in case any situation does arise. Although university already has consent workshops that happen online, I believe that conducting this in person would be much more beneficial for students. Next would be to introduce like I mentioned, introduce a women-only bus which travel over, especially during club nights, and also to collaborate with clubs and pop and school days to ensure more female staff, given that female students would feel much more safer to go and approach female staff, and also have regular social media campaigns, posters in key campus areas, and collaborate with societies to normalize conversations about consent and safety.
Do you believe the report and support system is fit for purpose in supporting victims of sexual violence on campus? And if not, how could it be improved?
Right. I do believe that the reportless support system is fit for purpose in supporting victims of sexual violence on campus. Although it does exist, many students are not aware of how the exact process takes place, how to file a report, or what exactly happens after filing a report, what type of support they will get, and how long it will take to get. So I would essentially advocate on having a specified timeline for these report plus support to get the feedback from the report plus support staff, and also advocate for more in-person demonstration workshops on how to file these reports, what type of support they'll be getting. And also many students do hesitate to report due to fear of retaliation. So introduce a much more wider anonymous reporting with the option to receive support without formal escalation, so that this would encourage many more students to report in case any situation is there.
Thank you. And then if we hear the questions from Laura again.
The period poverty campaign on campus has been spearheaded by successive women's officers. How would you enhance this campaign further?
All right. So, like you mentioned, the period poverty campaign has been led by successive women's officer before. I do plan to continue the same initiatives as the period women's officer. Although I do still feel that the period poverty still exists around campus, given that there are initiatives to reduce it, but there aren't constant refills around sanitary products especially in the washrooms across campus. So I would ensure that there are weekly, 3 to 4 days or weekly refills across all places around campus to ensure that there's no period poverty in the university.
What do you think is the biggest concern facing female students on campus at this moment, and how would you look to address this?
So one of the biggest concerns that I personally think that female students face on campus would be safety and moving around, especially during club nights. Like I mentioned before, in order to ensure better safety and security, introduce emergency phone booths, more pathway lighting, self-defense workshops, and also collaborate with local transportation to ensure that women feel safe when transporting from Warwick to Leamington or Coventry.
Okay, thank you. And then if we have any questions from the floor. Yeah, do you want to go first?
How will you both find ways to support trans women who feel quite underrepresented in recent years, and how will you try and do that?
Do you want to go first?
I can go first, yeah, that's fine. So as I mentioned when I was talking, trans women I think should be a massive part of my campaign, and as my role as women's officer, I think we should help them to form communities, and I would love to invite some, like the trans officer maybe in to collaborate on that. Also just making it very clear that the student union, or at least me as women's officer, stands against any transphobic rhetoric that we might see on the media or in politics at the minute, just to make them feel as comfortable as they can be to engage with us and to report anything that they might be facing to the student union and to come to us for advice, and also just provide communities where that they can feel solidarity with each other as well in difficult times they might be facing when they turn on the news.
Yeah, in order to ensure that trans students also feel safe and seen around campus, I'd essentially try to collaborate with the officers for LGBTQ and trans, and try implementing policies and initiatives that make sure that trans students also feel seen and heard. And like the candidate mentioned, I'd ensure that they can rely on the SU to take care of any issues if in case they do arise, and also trust the SU to solve these issues without any hassle.
Go ahead.
So I have a question for both candidates. So they both mentioned compulsory courses on consent, perhaps in Freshers Week, and also phone booths are mentioned. So that with on the topic of phone booths, there already exists an emergency hotline that's available 24/7 for anyone who doesn't like that. And for the courses in Freshers Week, we actually did have many compulsory courses. I wanted to ask what you change about them, because I feel like lots of people know about consent and they know the importance of it, but when it comes to practice, they just don't care. And how we can change that kind of issue of people actually following through with it in real life situations.
So, like a couple of things there, but yeah, you do have the booths around campus where you can call community safety. I think ways to improve that is you could have more options for who you could talk to. People, like I said, people don't always feel comfortable talking to community safety, and like the SU should then become kind of the follow-up to that, and also there should be more options when you do go to community safety. The second part of your question, I think I've forgotten the last part.
So like the compulsory courses.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so as you mentioned, they happen in Freshers Week. You then very rarely hear about them after that point. I think consistent training and consistent signposting is really important. Also, the training, it exists, and we aren't going to change people's mindsets overnight, unfortunately. But it can definitely become more comprehensive about off-campus safety specifically, like was mentioned before, clubs in Leamington and Coventry, and can make people more aware of things like the self-defense classes that we market to women and trans and non-binary students on campus. So yeah, I do feel like it could become more comprehensive and more visible to the student community.
Yeah, so like I'd mentioned before, in terms of consent workshops, although we did have them, I personally haven't seen them happen after Freshers Week or have in-person demonstration workshops, and I feel that having them in person will be much more beneficial and will convey much more information than having them online and having students complete an online course. And in terms of emergency phone booths, although they do exist around campus, they aren't as much around the Piazza or like central campus. They are in accommodations next to Sherburne, Lakeside, or Sports Hub areas, but I plan to implement them in the central campus areas as well. And again, like the candidate mentioned, ensure that they get an option to speak to whoever they want to, because they might not be comfortable speaking with an officer at all times. So yeah.
Yeah, can I just add as well, I think I missed off mine. I also wanted to highlight that the report and support system as well is the best way to prevent, and making that a quicker service gets like dangerous rhetoric and dangerous ideas off campus as quickly as possible and gets them dealt with and addressed. So I think the report and support service should be reformed to address that as well.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions?
I know someone online who submitted one via the online form. Just wondering if you could, if that was available.
Sorry. Give us 1 second.
So, yeah, I'm personally very concerned about that. The people being allowed to campaign on campus on that basis in political elections should not have happened and should not happen in the future. And I would try my best to work with the university and to work with the student union to ensure it doesn't happen again. Also, just, we can't necessarily stop people from mentioning these things on campus, but just making sure that women, the first place that they come to get advice, is somewhere that understands that their reproductive rights deserve to be protected, and can signpost them to all necessary and available help and support in making that decision. Like, it's their choice at the end of the day. They shouldn't feel pressured either way. So that should be signposted very clearly by the student union, and increasingly clearly based on what we've seen on campus recently.
As much as I do stand against anti-abortion campaigns, campaigns such as this are at times unavoidable, although the university or student union will try to work against this. At times these are unavoidable, so in that case I would essentially try advocating for more information based on what female students can do in case they do face this issue. They can rely on the student union or any mentor that they feel comfortable with to guide them through the process in case they do feel in case they do find themselves in any of these situations, and also work with the university to ensure that campaigns such as this do not happen again, and that female students do feel safe discussing about these topics with the SU. Yeah.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, thank you guys so much. So next up we're hearing from candidates for the Ethnic Minorities Officer. This is Ryan Mether, if you'd like to come up. So if you'd like to do your speech first.
Sure. Okay, good evening everyone. I'm Rian, and I'm your only candidate applying for this position. I'm a first year PPE student, and I identify as an ethnic minority. I grew up in London though, so for the majority of my life I was surrounded by the typical majority, and growing up in an environment of such kind has given me kind of the first-hand understanding of discrimination that ethnic minorities face, and just setbacks to education and otherwise. So I have a few specific manifesto promises, such as to include minority officers in every single society on campus compulsorily, and to mandate this would be to ensure that societies are diverse and we don't have any scandals in societies as we have seen in the recent past. But I think we also ought to address the structural issues that are causing racism and even fascism on the rise on campus and otherwise. And this comes from education. So I would intend to work with the student staff liaison committee to decolonize the curriculum, make it more understanding of our real past, and not the kind of changes to history that seem to be being perpetuated by the education system. And and some people have been complaining about the weak democracy of the SU, and I think that on matters like this, where lots of the student union believe in the very same thing, we can come together and show our strength as students to prevent, for example, the university from being complicit in its work with Rolls-Royce and just other morally ambiguous pursuits. I would also push for more affordable world foods in Roots grocery store, and just make it generally more accessible for ethnic minorities who are often international students and often would pay more for their studies, etc. So I would just make it kind of fair for everyone and welcoming for every student. Thank you.
So that's been 2 minutes.
Thank you.
If we could hear questions from Raw first.
What do you think are the greatest challenges faced by students belonging to ethnic minority groups on campus, and how would you seek to address these?
So I would say that the biggest challenge would be kind of settling in and finding your place in the university. So I guess with ethnic minorities, you are a minority. You might have less in common with the typical counterpart. You might not have the same kind of background, the interests. You might listen to different music and play different sport, and you might not have the same chance to fit in. And so in order to address that, we need to make it a bit more international, have some kind of sports societies that are more focused on international international variant.
The SU has pushed for decolonizing the curriculum over the past few years. Would you seek to continue this work to ensure that students belong to ethnic minority groups be represented in their studies? And what was this meaningful change in this regard mean for you?
Yeah, so I kind of addressed that in my speech, but to me that looks like showing, like, especially for like the social sciences, right? You're not gonna have issues like that in maths, but although you kind of do. So what I would say is that like when we talk about like history and stuff, we do it from a very Western perspective, and I think that like with the student staff liaison committee really pinpointing each of these kinds of things, getting the students to like say, well, and like hearing from ethnic minorities, getting these students to say like, well, look, this is an issue, we need to kind of give a more neutral understanding of this. And obviously that's not a simple task, and it will take like years of students to do this, but yeah, I think that is a good step forward. Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Specifically, since how would you seek to continue to like push the decolonized curriculum over the past few years, what would meaningful change in this specific regard mean for you?
Yeah, so it would, I think, it's just an issue with education systems generally, right? In this country, we have like, we would naturally have some Western rhetoric. It's just the way the system is, and that's precisely what we can get like our ethnic minorities to unionize and challenge, right? It's about challenging the structures that we would otherwise take for granted, and yeah, I think giving ethnic minorities that voice is precisely what I think to do. And yeah, when I was talking about like maths and sciences, we often, this is a very specific thing, but we often like know kind of scholars that that kind of like, we kind of like do our research into Western scholars rather than like, for example, in medicine, lots of Islamic scholars did a lot of work that we kind of just ignore. And like, especially in like philosophy, Eastern philosophy developed for years, and in the West, it's kind of like what we focus on, perhaps unreasonably, and
Thank
maybe,
you.
yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. If we can now move on to questions from the board.
We've seen a significant spike in the number of recorded incidents of anti-Semitism on university campuses. How do you intend to work with the Jewish community at Warwick to combat hatred and prejudice?
Yeah, I definitely think that it's a very, very important issue. First of all, I would like to make it explicit that we can't conflate anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism. There are like Palestine protests, which are not the same as people singing Nazi anthems in parties, and like when we analyze these cases, like if we take the scandal with the Conservative Society, we can't pretend that this just happened out of the blue. This is something that has happened due to a lack of education and a lack of kind of like regulation. People are allowed to express these far-right views because no one is like holding them accountable. We need to establish these ethnic minority offices in each society to hold like their leaders into account, right? In societies where this, in societies like the Tory society, wherein this kind of spread, they probably didn't have any Jews because they didn't have that kind of diversity, and that's what we need to bring in to prevent this from happening.
Similarly, Islamophobic rhetoric has become increasingly prevalent in the past year. So how would you seek to respond to the concerns of Muslim students? Yeah,
I mean, it's on a similar note, bringing in ethnic minority officers to kind of represent the voices of as many as we can. But like, I guess the issue is a little bit different. I appreciate that there are nuances to that. I think this comes a lot with like education as well. And like, when it comes to Palestine and issues surrounding the Middle East, we should, as a union, put pressure on the university to kind of stop its complicity in this and stop allowing for kind of this rhetoric to spread. And and I think the unity of the union is something I'd stress. We are supposed to challenge the problems that exist that are perpetuating this Islamophobia. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the floor? Okay, thank you so much, Ria.
Thank you.
We are now going to have a quick access break, so if everyone can be back for 6:20. Thank you everyone, and welcome back to our part-time officer question time. Hope you enjoyed your access break. Next up we have our disabled student officers, and co-running we have Ruby Deacon and Harriet Pageant. So if you guys would like to give your speech.
Yep. Hi, I'm Ruby. I'm a second year English literature student, and I'm hoping to bring my experience as an equality, diversity and inclusion officer to the role of disabled student officer.
And I'm Harry. I'm in the steering group in the student union, and I've also had experience being welfare for plan as well.
So one of our main concerns is the need for more communication channels to be put in place, which are currently not in place. So we want to provide more communication by allowing disabled students from different departments to connect with each other. Many struggles that disabled students face have common causes, and we believe that these challenges should be tackled collectively, making recommendations university-wide and ensuring that all departments and faculties are accountable to the needs and requirements of students. So with more cross-departmental communication, we aim to champion standardised policies so that disabled students no longer have to fight with their departments to receive the access arrangements that they're entitled to. One of these policies concerns the recordings of lectures. We believe that no student should miss out on the content of their degree, and we want to normalise the use of lecture capture by campaigning to replace the current opt-in policy with an opt-out system. We believe that standard policies such as this will reduce resistance to change by departments that we've faced quite a lot recently, and this will create a more inclusive environment for all students, not just those with a formal disability diagnosis.
We'd also like to work with wellbeing to review the wording of reasonable adjustments and ensure they're tailored to the individual needs of students. Also helping to make sure that departments maintain access arrangements like promised throughout a person's degree. We also want to publicise more information to help accessibility, including the university's Code of Practice for Disabled Students, which can be used as a document to kind of increase awareness of which guidelines you kind of are entitled to when you're having a conversation with the department. And as well, we'd like to create kind of clear visual guides to help with understanding the well-being system, because sometimes it can be difficult to know exactly where you need to go for different kinds of support, whether that's mental health or disability. And I think clear visual documents to show the different areas would be very helpful for
Thank you guys. Sorry to cut you off. If we could take questions from Raw first, please.
What part of the SU do you think is still too inaccessible for disabled students, and how would you seek to change this?
So I think one that probably everyone can understand is the website. I think there's a lot of things that could be edited to make it look to make it more streamlined, to know exactly where you need to go for certain things. When I was looking through the website earlier today, in order to find any information on disabled students, you had to first find help and support, then it was health and mental well-being, and then it was disabled information. It's very difficult to kind of find where you're going. And then once you've found the information, it's basically just redirecting links as well, kind of like what we were talking about with report and support earlier. And I think processes making things like that more accessible for disabled students also makes it more accessible for everyone. So the more easily this information is accessed, the more it benefits everyone involved with the student body.
Also, what do you think that ableism is still prevalent in SU societies and sports clubs, and how would you seek to challenge this?
So I think ableism in general is very prevalent, but it's not always necessarily very obvious. I think it exists kind of structurally, so in terms of the university as a whole, there's a lot of insufficient training for staff that can lead to a lot of misunderstanding and misinformation. So things like within departments, personal tutors aren't required to do any kind of neurodiversity awareness training, very minimal disability awareness training. It can lead to a lot of misunderstanding. There was a report from Wellbeing from a few years ago that kind of exposed a lot of the kind of comments that a lot of personal tutors make when they're not necessarily as aware of how different forms of disability kind of manifest themselves. So things like being told, you don't seem like you've got a certain disability, or is this a new thing? So we want to champion the voices of disabled students so they can give feedback to tutors and make generally understanding more wide-ranging. And we want to work with the Dean of Students and Wellbeing to put this in place. And then in terms of societies as well, I think students should be able to explain how their particular disability manifests itself, because different presentations are always going to be prevalent. And execs should be trained to better understand these needs and requirements. Yeah.
Thank you. And then if we hear questions from the board.
What more do you think needs to be done to improve accessibility of education for disabled students at Warwick?
So we want to ensure policies are standardised as kind of one of our main ideas, so that departments have more accountability first and foremost. So this is why we're pushing for an opt-out system of lecture capture. We want to normalise this policy and other policies as kind of standard across the university to reduce resistance from departments, specifically with lecture capture. Normalising this would create the impression that it is something that is necessary to aid disabled students, rather than it being something that's sort of optional or up to departmental discretion. So because barriers can be physical or otherwise, lecture attendance is often a trickier subject, and no student should miss out on the content of their degree. Overall, departments enjoy a lot of autonomy when deciding access requirements. Things like deciding assignment deadlines, lecture recordings, access to materials in advance, different kinds of assessments. And it can create a lot of a lack of accountability and leave disabled students having to fight for their own access requirements. So we believe there is a need for these things to be changed and standardised as much as they can be from above, so that departments can't ad hoc alter the access arrangements of students. This is also why we want to reevaluate how reasonable adjustments are worded, so that they're always watertight and ironclad, and departments can't find loopholes to change access requirements. So in terms of policy, that's one of our main pushes.
Many disabled students cite a lack of signposting behind their lack of participation in sport. How would you work to ensure sports for disabled students are more accessible and more publicised?
I think it's important to strike a balance between having events for specifically disabled students and also recognising the systemic issues between how sports clubs are run and how to cater for lots of different disabilities. And so I probably want to enable and other disabled societies, create collaborations between sports clubs and disability societies, while also maybe working to see if there's any training we could do specifically for sports clubs to help improve just general accessibility for their general events, because just one-off events are not going to tackle the sort of issue of increasing the inclusion in sports clubs in general.
Thank you. And then if we have any questions from the floor. Okay, thank you both. Next up, we're going to be hearing from candidates for the LGBTQIA+ officer. So if we have Jessie, you and Matty Oakey co-running, and Ruslan Kulakadis. Thank you guys. Would you like to do your speech?
Yeah. So we're Matty and Jessie. We're running for LGBTQIA+ officer. So I'm Matty. I'm a second year Pan math student, and I am social secretary in Plan. So I run a lot of pro events, which gives me good experience in this. I'm also on welfare forums. So yeah, I have experience with the well-being of students. I love crochet ducks and campaigning for the rights of queer human beings. So yeah, that's me.
Hi everyone, I'm Jessie. I'm a second year PPE student from China, and I'm an outreach officer from Plan. As an international student, I understand how hard it can feel to navigate in a new environment, especially when LGBTQ rights and experience vary so much across the world. Thus, I'm committed to make a University of Warwick more inclusive and supportive for all students, no matter where they come from. And once elected, we will push for queer culture campaign, which highlights global LGBTQIA+ experiences. We will provide accommodation fund for LGBTQ+ students who need safe housing. We will also provide better mental health and coming under resources with a student feedback form, as well as updated welfare training on current queer issues.
In addition to that, we'd also like to push for more gender-neutral toilets in all new buildings for better accessibility. Period products in men's toilets to support trans people better. We'd also like more events during LGBTQ+ History Month, because I've noticed a lack of that on campus this year. I've seen a stall in the library and not much else. I think we also need more pronouns on eVision. You can't expand it beyond they, them, he, him, she, her. And I think we need to do something to fix that. So yeah, that's us.
Thank you, guys. If we then take questions from Raw.
A huge part of this role is helping to plan Warwick Pride. How would you like to change or else improve this community event in the future?
Well, I want to make Warwick Pride more accessible and engaging for international students by ensuring diverse representation in both events and speakers. Queer students from different cultural backgrounds should feel seen and included in this kind of events.
As someone who's planned and run LGBTQ+ events before, I'd love to bring in more interactive activities and creative workshops. Also social spaces to make Pride feel like a true celebration of community. We'd love to work to expand Warwick Pride's reach, ensuring it's becoming a vibrant event that brings the whole LGBTQ+ community together.
We're lucky at Warwick to be a home to both Pride and Plan Society, and I know that both of you are part of Plan. Would you care to expand a bit more on your experience working with Plan, and how would you seek to work further with both of these societies in your role?
Yeah, as a current outreach officer for Plan, I know how vital collaboration in building a strong queer network as a Warwick is.
I think bringing Pride and Plan together going forward would be very useful. They've had a bit of beef in the past, to put it delicately, but I think we can move past that. I mean, I'm personally on Plan Exec, but I've done lots of events with Pride and I'm good friends with lots of the execs, so I think moving forward, especially with us additionally being in this position, it won't be difficult to help the three run together and coordinate events, ensuring representation and strengthen student support networks.
Thank you, and if we then take questions from the board.
How would you work with Pride groups at Warwick to boost community events on campus and ensure an inclusive atmosphere at these events?
I mean, as an outreach officer, I would like to ensure regular communications between Pride and Plan, and the SU to support the joint events that are welcoming for all LGBTQ+ students, especially for international students.
Like I said, I've worked with Pride before to run inclusive events, many amazing circles. But I'd also like to expand these collaborations by creating more intersectional spaces, such as casual meetups, cultural celebrations, and welfare-focused events to support students beyond just nightlife. We want more accessible, diverse events that cater to different needs, whether they're social, educational, welfare, to strengthen the community at Warwick.
In your opinion, what's the single greatest issue facing LGBTQIA+ students in their day-to-day life on campus? How would you work to resolve this?
I mean, a major issue is the lack of institutional support for queer students, especially those from international or less accepting backgrounds. Many students struggle with housing, mental health, and finding safe spaces. We would like to push for expanded welfare resources, including a queer culture campaign, like I mentioned above, to support students who cannot be out at home safely.
I think it's invisibility and exclusion, especially in this ever-evolving political climate. I think they're major problems, and I think we can help fix this by fixing the missing pronoun options or helping update gender-neutral facilities. or just include more queer students in events. So yeah, I think better pronoun recognition and more inclusive community spaces would be good. I think we want to make Warwick a place where every LGBTQ+ student feels seen, supported and safe, whether that's through policy changes, welfare improvements or stronger community events.
Thank you. And then if we have any questions from the floor. Thank you guys. Okay, so that brings us to an end for this evening. Thank you guys so much for attending. Congratulations to all the candidates and good luck for next week. Just a final reminder that voting opens at 9 AM. Hope all of you are planning to vote. And that there are a series of kind of little freebies that you can get if you vote. The next question time is on Friday at 5.